Hey guys, this is David with the Swim Life Pro YouTube channel, and I wanted to talk to you today about the 4 fundamentals of swimming and why they're so important as a foundation for anything you want to learn in the water, as well as the 2 most common questions that I've received having been a swim instructor over the last 16 years. So, fundamental number 1, every stroke is designed and learned in the exact same way. What this means is every stroke is designed with 4 major parts. Your head and body position, which is the most important thing in anything that you do in the water, your kicking, which is what your legs do, your pulling, which is what your arms do, and your breathing, which is how you breathe. Okay? So these 4 sections are the designation of every stroke, and they're learned in this order: head and body position, kicking, pulling, breathing. Now, when your head and body position is the most important thing because your head controls how your body rests on the water. Now, what's attached to your body? Everything, right? Your head is attached to your body, your arms are attached to your body, and your legs are attached to your body. So if your body is wrong, nothing can be right because everything is attached to it. Also, again, your head controls how your body rests on the water. For instance, if you're on your front, the lower your head, the higher your body. The higher your body, the better you're doing. Okay? Now there's an analogy called the door analogy. So let's imagine that we get a door and we put it all the way down into the water, okay? Now you get behind that door and you try to push that door forwards. What's going to happen? You're going to have to put a lot of weight behind it. It's going to be very difficult in order to push that door forwards because there's a giant surface area that's resisting the direction you're trying to go, right? But get that same door and you put it on its side like this and try to push it forwards now. You could probably push it using one finger like this. Why? Because the surface area that's resisting the direction you're trying to go is a lot smaller when the door is on its side like this. Now your body is very similar to that door. The lower your body is in the water, the harder it is for your body to go in any direction that you're trying to go. But the higher your body, the easier it is for you to glide across the top of the water. So your head determining how your body rests on the water, the lower your head when you're on the front, the higher your body, the lower your head, the better you're doing, okay? If you learn anything at all in this video, it's make sure you know where your head is supposed to be, because if you can do that correctly, then your stroke is a lot easier when your body is in the correct position, okay? Section number 2, called your kicking, typically your kicks balance the back half of your body. So your head controls your body, but you've got a hinge in the middle of your body called your waist. Now, your head can only do so much, but your waist, if you don't have a good kick, is going to cause your legs to sink down into the water. So the second most important thing that you do in the water is make sure that your kicks are effective. Because if you cannot do that, the lower your legs because you have an ineffective kick, the more difficult your stroke is going to be. Now, when you're swimming and you're doing strokes correctly, you want it to be very easy. And if you're doing a stroke correctly, it's a lot easier, okay? And you want to do it for a long period of time. The higher up your stroke, the more efficient your stroke is going to be. So your head controls how your body rests on the water. Your legs control how to get your body balanced on top of the water. So let's talk about why balance is important in swimming. So if you're walking down the street and you lose your balance, what's going to happen? You're going to fall, right? If you're on a bicycle and you lose your balance, what's going to happen? You're going to fall. If you're on a skateboard and you lose your balance, you're going to fall, right? But whenever you're in the water and you lose your balance, what's going to happen? You can't fall in the water, but what happens is you actually sink. Your body sinks down in the water like this. So let's say that your head and body is good, but your kick is bad. Your legs are going to be down in the water like this. You're not going to have an effective stroke because, kind of like that door analogy, it's going to be very hard to move yourself in the water when your body position is low. And if you have an ineffective kick, your body is going to sink in the water and make everything you do more difficult, okay? So the most important part of swimming is your head and body position, and then you balance your stroke with your kick, okay? So making sure that you get your body completely balanced on top of the water is the most important thing that you can do correctly. Those 2 things will create a balanced stroke that makes an efficient stroke, okay? The third most important thing whenever you're swimming is what's called your pull. And your pull is typically the thing that makes you move in the water. And the more effective your pull is, the further you're going to go in any direction that you want to go. Now, It's a lot more difficult to swim if you've got a very poor head and body position, or if you have an ineffective kick. It is going to be very difficult to swim and use a pull correctly if those two things are incorrect. So again, when we go back to every stroke is designed and learned in the exact same way, you want to make sure that you're learning and getting correct as you can be the sections that you need to have done first. You need to make sure that you're doing your head and body position correct, so that your body is flat on top of the water. When you add your legs, you need to make sure that your kicks are correct and that you're able to keep your body up on top of the water, so that when you add your arms, that your arms can be more effective than if your body was incorrect. You need to make sure to build upon your stroke in what's called the logical order of progression. Make sure that you do the things first that you need to do first, and then build onto the things that you need to build later on. Okay? You don't want to just hop into the water and just start swimming like this, and it kind of creates a hurricane of incorrect behavior. Now, when you do things incorrectly, in swimming especially, you create bad habits. So you want to make sure that you get good habits first with your body position, good habits with your kicks, and then good habits with your arms. Now, the breathing is the least important part of your stroke. It's not to be misunderstood for unimportant. Your breathing is very important to your stroke. However, you can't even learn how to breathe correctly at all unless the first 3 sections of your stroke are done correctly. So you've got to make sure that your body is up. You have to make sure that your kicks are effective to keep your body up. You have to make sure that your body is moving on top of the water. All of those things have to happen before you're even able to try your breathing. So you need to make sure to do all 4 of those things correctly in order to have a successful stroke. So fundamental number 1, every stroke, which there are 6 strokes: freestyle, backstroke, breaststroke, butterfly, which are the 4 racing strokes, and then there's side stroke and elementary backstroke. Those are the 2 resting strokes, but all 6 of those strokes have those same things in common, which are those 4: head and body position, kicking, pulling, breathing, and they're all learned in the exact same order. So if you're thinking about what strokes to do, make sure, where does my body position go? What kind of kick am I supposed to have? What kind of pull am I supposed to have? And then how am I supposed to breathe? And that's how you're supposed to learn and build strokes. So that's fundamental number 1. Fundamental number 2 is your body is designed into 3 independently functioning sections. What this means is your head is, so from your neck up, is an independently functioning section, which means it should be able to move from side to side like this and it not affect your shoulders. Likewise, from your neck to your waist is an independently functioning section, which means it should be able to move like this with your shoulders and it not affect your head position. So you should be able to move your shoulders and it not do this and it not do that. Okay, you need to make sure that you have a separation in your neck between your shoulders and your head. And this is very important for strokes such as freestyle and backstroke, where you have what's called a lateral body roll, where your shoulders do a lot of moving like this. If you can't separate your shoulders from your head, your stroke is going to move unnecessarily. Remember, the head is the most important part of your stroke, correct? So if your head is moving unnecessarily, because your head determines how your body rests on the water, your stroke is going to be moving unnecessarily. So you want to make sure that your head is completely still unless when breathing. So fundamental number 2, you need to have independently functioning sections of your stroke. Whenever your shoulders are moving around, you want to keep your head as still as possible. Okay? And then the third independently functioning section is from your waist down. So when you're doing your kicks and you're kicking like this, you want to make sure that it's not moving your shoulders and especially not moving your head. So you want to try to section out your strokes. Now think about this with fundamental number 1. You learn your head and body position first. You want to be stable in the water. When you're learning your kicks, try to do your kicks and it not affect your shoulders. When you're adding your arms, try to add your arms and it not affect your head position. You want to try to make sure that you stabilize your stroke and you independently function each section of your body. Okay? That's a fundamental and fundamental number 2. Fundamental number 3 is every action has an equal and opposite reaction in the water. Now what this means is when you're swimming and you pull water backwards, your body responds in the opposite direction by going forwards. Now let's say we're swimming freestyle. The more water you pull behind you, the further forwards you're going to go. Now a very common error in swimming, and when people typically learn and they're getting in the water, they're by themselves, maybe they don't have a teacher with them, they're going to try to get in the water, and the first thing that concerns them is that they're not able to breathe when their head is underneath the water. So they try to keep their heads above water. Now, the most common error when people are learning is that they will push the water down in order to keep their head up out of water. Okay? Now, if we go back to fundamental number 1, the higher your head is in the water whenever you're on your front, the lower your body goes. The lower your body goes, the more of that door analogy, the resistance for trying to get you to swim in the direction you're trying to go. You want to make sure that you've got those fundamentals down, okay? So whenever you're swimming and every action has an equal and opposite reaction, when you're swimming, for instance, again, freestyle, you want to make sure that you have a very long stroke like this to make sure that you're pulling as much water backwards so you're responding by going forwards as much as you can. Okay, so every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Make sure that your kicking and your pulling is going in the direction that you intend so that your body goes in the opposite direction. Okay, it's a very common error to overlook this. And then the fourth and final fundamental is knowing when to breathe and when not to breathe is very important. This is called breath control. Now, for strokes that are on your front, which are your freestyle, your breaststroke, and your butterfly, you have to have what's called breathing and timing. You've got to be able to lift your face up out of water just enough to take a breath and get back down into the water. The faster you can do this and the less you affect the rest of your body with your breathing, the better. You're never going to have a time whenever you're swimming during your stroke, if you're doing it correctly, where you're able to take a really big breath like that. You've only had the opportunity to really get like that. So you need to make sure to breathe as quickly as you can, and knowing when to breathe and when not to breathe is very important. And another very common thing is you can breathe in above water, you can breathe out above water. You can breathe out below water, which is called bubbles, but you cannot breathe in below water. So you need to make sure that whenever your face comes up very quickly, you have already exhaled everything underneath the water. So you blow bubbles. Whenever your face comes up to take a breath, you have no air in your lungs. This is probably a very, very important thing to learn, because if you come up out of the water and you're still exhaling, you're wasting time that you could have been exhaling underwater. So you exhale, inhale, and then back down into the water. Okay? So those are the 4 fundamentals of swimming. Every stroke is designed and learned in the exact same way. You should have 3 independently functioning sections of your body: your head, your torso, and your legs. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction in the water. Make sure that you're pushing the water in the opposite direction that you intend to go. And then knowing when to breathe and when not to breathe is very important. So those are the 4 fundamentals of swimming. Now, the 2 most common questions that I've received, having been a swim instructor over the last 16 years, probably the most common one that I've received is someone will come to me and they'll say, hey, I'm a fairly athletic person, okay? I can run, X distance in, an hour or whatever, and I'm okay after an hour. Or, I can go to the gym and I can exercise for 45 minutes or an hour or however long, and it doesn't affect me. I'm not that tired. But the second I get into the water, I can swim from point A to point B, and in 30 seconds or a minute, I'm completely exhausted. Why? So when you're doing strokes correctly, it feels correct. Now, a lot of times when people hop into the water, the first thing that they do if they don't have a teacher is they'll hop in and they will do all 4 things all at once. Now, if we go back to fundamental number 1, we know that we have to build onto strokes in a logical order of progression. You need to do the first things, the foundational things first, and then build upon it slowly. Okay, so if a person hops into the water, and we've all seen it, their head is above water like this, they're pushing down on the water like that, their legs are really low in the water, and they're kicking really frantically, that's a lot of things that are going wrong. So let's kind of try to figure out what exactly is happening. So when a person hops in the water and they don't know how to swim, typically they are very fearful. Okay, they want to know, hey, I need to make sure that my face needs to be above water. So they lift their head up, which we know is bad, right? For instance, if you're doing freestyle, if your head is always above water, it causes your body to drop down into the water and become very inefficient. Okay, so you need to make sure, first thing is that you have to get your head all the way down into the water. And then if their head is all the way up, how do they keep their head up? Remember, they're pushing down on the water with their arms. They're trying to get from point A to point B, but if they're pushing down, where's their body responding? equal and opposite reaction. They're just going up, they're not going forwards. So you need to make sure that you're pulling the water backwards. And then also, if your head is always above water, it causes your legs to really drastically drop in the water. And when your legs drop drastically in the water like that, you have a sensation of sinking. And so when you have that sensation of sinking, it causes you to kick a lot more frantically, and then thus burning more energy very quickly. So you need to make sure that your body is on top of the water, that you're pulling in the correct direction, and that you're kicking and making sure to balance your body up to the top of the water. Okay? Always refer to the fundamentals: head and body position, kicking, pulling, breathing, independently functioning sections, equal and opposite reaction, and then making sure to know when to breathe and when not to breathe. So once you're able to master all of those things, you'll be able to swim from point A to point B in a pool very easily, over and over and over, swimming laps. Okay? And then the second most common question that I typically receive is, which stroke should I learn first? Now, that's kind of up to what you're wanting to get out of swimming. If you're wanting to exercise, and you want to use the water as an exercise, I would probably recommend freestyle. It has really high efficiency, but then it also allows you to be very effective in your workout by raising your heart rate. So if you're comfortable with putting your face down in the water, and you're comfortable with building up to your stroke, and you're learning it, in the logical order of progression, and you can do it correctly, I would recommend freestyle because it's an excellent workout. But if you don't want to put your face into the water, I would probably recommend backstroke. The only downside to backstroke is that you can't really see where you're going. So if you're in a pool and you're not using what's called the backstroke flags, which are, if you go to any pool, you'll see these hanging flags above a pool. If you're not using those, you could run your head into the wall, and that's going to hurt. So you need to make sure that you know where you are in the water when you're learning backstroke. If you're wanting to swim recreationally, I would probably recommend breaststroke. Breaststroke, it's very easy to modify breaststroke to keep your head above water the entire time, so you can kind of see where you're going. If you're swimming with friends, for instance, you can keep your head above water the entire time, and you can also breathe the entire time if you modify it to keep your head above water. And then breaststroke can also easily transition into treading water. So your breaststroke has a kick called the breaststroke kick, and if you modify it correctly, that's what's called the modified breaststroke kick. You're able to tread water very easily. So if you're trying to swim for fun, I would probably recommend the breaststroke. Okay? Make sure to comment on this video and ask any questions that you want, and in a future video I will answer them. Okay? Have a good day, guys.